Now we have the first sectorial session of the day, and we wanted to do a special session from Valencia. We have said, okay, we need to bring people from tourism, the smart city. I don't know if you know that, that Valencia is one of the biggest smart cities and the most important smart cities in Europe, I would say, even not in Spain. So, and we have said, okay, we do a mix of everything. So we will have this session with a mix of tourism, smart cities, and mobility. And I will try to invite everybody. Can you just come here? You know, everybody, you have 6-7 minutes to speak, and we will start for tourism. Deploy tour with Tony Sánchez from AnySolution. Thank you, Tony.
Presentation? Is it okay? Okay. Good afternoon to everybody. Thank you, Paqui, for the presentation. As you mentioned, AnySolution is the coordinator of the Deploy project co-funded by the European Union, whose the main objective is develop the common European tourism data space. Let me introduce a short introduction for AnySolution. AnySolution, we are an innovative SME. We are a fish in a sea, plenty of whales, and specializing in smart data. We have developed our own data platform called Iberia, based on international open standards. We transform data into information and knowledge. In addition, at DEPLOYTOUR, as you can see in this slide, we lead and collaborate on various European projects focusing on tourism, communities, and agriculture. The last project, we are partner of Ahtes project that deploys the common European agriculture data space. It's going to be quite short. Just give you an overview that the project is about. DEPLOYTOUR was launched within the framework of Digital Europe program. It's a project that started 6 months ago, involving 43 organizations from 13 countries. For example, the different ministries, Portugal, Greek, Italian. They're going to help us spread the word in all the member states. Over the next 3 years, the consortium will work to deploy a common, reliable, and secure European data infrastructure for tourism. So, at the end, we are developing a data space. We are going to generate this trusted and secure place in which the data will flow. And this is very important because the tourism ecosystem is very complex. So we want data flowing within the tourism ecosystem, but also the cross-sector. And this is one of the challenges is that we have. At the end, this is very important for to strengthen digital sovereignty and tourism. It's a very important industry in Europe at the level of the European Union. It must be better managed in order to ensure competitiveness and sustainability. So it's just the general concept. Of course, there are several initiatives. It's interesting to understand how it's working because there are some initiatives at the level of the European Union, but then at the national level, and then there are other data spaces in the private sector that are emerging everywhere. But then we have this complexity of the different actors that are working in the sector. We had to make real the implementation of different use cases that I'm going to explain later on. To achieve this objective, DEPLOYTOUR follows a structured roadmap, including identifying user kinds and technical requirements, collecting and modeling data, adopting European sector-specific standards, designing architecture based on references like DSC, IDSA, Simple, Fireware, and of course, Gaia-X, and developing interoperable components. A clear governance framework will also be established through a rulebook, defining the roles, responsibilities, and the rules for all participants in the data space. As a project, we have milestones that are very similar to the other projects. So at the end, we have to implement this technical infrastructure. What we are trying to ensure is interoperability, technical interoperability, but also semantic and governance interoperability. We have the pilots, the governance framework within these rules and roles with the different stakeholders in order to ensure this good governance for the whole ecosystem. To ensure this interoperability, as we are doing now, to generate the synergies and to communicate what we are doing. We have this high-level roadmap. We are still starting, only 6 months, gathering of the different requirements and needed putting into place, the implementation of the use case, the pilots, and of course, the architecture. For a data space, governance is very important. In the end, I think it makes a big difference from one data space to another. There are different actors that should be defined the roles and the different laws, rules, regulation, and we are to fulfill the GDPR and one of them, but not only the one. So I think it's very important to understand how the rules that we have to define within the tourism data space are going to be also compatible, they're all interoperable with. Transversality is fundamental. I think it's something that is going to repeat many times in this conference. And it's very important to start definition from the very beginning, because we have done ensure interoperability from the very beginning. Then we have to start working in the integrations. And this is something that can generate some problems, as you know, in the whole projects. We have tried to define 5 use case pilots. These pilots were implemented in different European regions to demonstrate the tangible benefits of the DEPLOYTOUR and the common European GPS space. So the pilots are trying to cover different typologies of destination, companies, and so on. We are in Valencia, and in Spain, there are another from the Canary Island, Andalusia, and the Balearics are participating to ensure competitiveness and resilience in mature tourism destinations. These pilots will validate the infrastructure, the governance models, showing how the data can improve decision-making, sustainability, and innovation in tourism. We invite all of you to participate in forums, workshops, and webinars, and to follow us in social networks and in our web page. Thank you very much. And together, we will build a more innovative, sustainability, and competitive European tourism ecosystem based on the value of data. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tony. And he has spoken on time. Perfect. You were perfect. Thank you very much, Tony, because you have spoken about a very important thing, is the interoperability. That is one of the main words now. And also in Spain, we have this incredible big European project, but we have also Segittur from the Ministry of Tourism, and it will be explained by Oriol Izquierdo from Test System, working with them in this project.
Okay. Thank you. So you will see that I kept my slides very simple, smooth, so we can focus on the message in another way. So basically, I think most of the people here are from Spain, but also we have people from abroad. Segittur is a state-owned company that drives innovation for the Ministry of Trade and... I have it? Oh, sorry. Better. So even you can skip the black words and just focus on the blue ones, and you get the information. So basically, it's a state-owned company that drives innovation for the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Tourism here in Spain. In Spanish, it's called Plataforma de Destinos Inteligentes, PIT, and within this we have also the PIA. In English, it would be something like Smart Destination Platforms. It's important to understand the concept of destination or destination networks here. The destination networks are kind of regional administrative areas of Spain from a government perspective. And they are kind of a network to drive the business and to make sure that the tourism business is running smooth in Spain. And that's the reason it's also linked to the business ecosystem. So this is to understand what the destinos or destinies means here. And also it's the first national public data space in Spain. It's planned to be implemented end of this year. And this is to understand a bit of the context of Segittur. As well, this data space in concrete is implemented by the systems. It's taking into account the core values of data spaces, such as Gaia-X Trust Framework that we're talking here, and later on we will see more of this. They really focus on the better tourism data. This concept is not existing, but I think it's understandable. It's just not tourism data, not only the bookings of a hotel or the flights or how many activities are taking place in a river, doing rafting or whatever. So it's basically all the data that can influence this. Energy cost based on the market share of the energy, or I don't know, if there's a tradition in Norway, people that become 21 years old, like people in South America becoming 15 years old, they do a big celebration. So maybe this is a good hint for marketing campaign. So it's not only taking into account the classical tourism data, but any data that can be useful. And this concept is interesting. Later on, while I will explain a line of work in the project, I will bring back this concept. Also, I think DEPLOYTOUR already explained some use cases on sustainable tourism and new business models, so I won't focus here now. To talk a bit about interoperability and standardization from two of the main 4 points of views, semantic and technical. For the semantic one, since this project, this data space is part of a broader national tourism strategy, Segittur took very seriously the semantic interoperability by defining a national tourism ontology. This means that if I call it bet or cama in Spanish, everyone calls it cama, machine translation, let's say, not human one, but at least machine, so we have semantic interoperability by definition. It's a great ontology. It's a super large document, and also there's the short version. It's interesting if someone wants to see it, and it's public available. Also, is meant to be used for all the tourism value chain. And for the technical standardization, we are right now seeing how to implement the Gaia-X Trust Framework in this project. We are implementing the Eclipse Dataspace connector with the IDSA protocol that we know that it's becoming an ICO. And also we are, since at the end, it's a new approach globally. It's a European data strategy that brings on the table a new approach. So we are designing the platform to be open to new frameworks that appear. For instance, a simple project creates a nice middleware that is promising, and it's something that we want to use. We are making the platform as broader as possible, at the same time as narrowing down some specific points as mentioned here, so we can also adapt to the future easily. Also the global vision, so I already mentioned that this is part of a broader national tourism strategy. And this is only one piece of this strategy. There's the data space, but there's also a sandbox that companies can join, can enter, and can create applications in that sandbox. There's Jupyter, Python for the more techies ones. And you can use the data share there to create applications, and then you have a marketplace, which is not the same concept as a data marketplace. In a data space, it's a marketplace to sell, to share your applications within all the ecosystem. Then we have the European level. Here, Segittur, for sure, is aligned with all what the European Commission says and will be aligned in the future as well. And other approaches, we are also having bilateral conversations with FIWARE, an emerging approach as well, more from the smart cities perspective. But as we said, Segittur is open to any new approach that is emerging. And here we have also a link to the DEPLOYTOUR project for the dates project beforehand, that they publish a blueprint, that they also state that the EDIC connector is the best approach for the connector. So these are just a couple of hints, and we have much more of different compatibilities, standardization, interoperability. And finally, I would like to finish this short explanation of the project with the engagement campaign. So basically, the project has a big line of work to engage participants from the destination point of view and then entering the different companies that are identified with the use case that we work with the destinations. And here I bring back again the concept of better tourism data, because here in the discussions we're open to any kind of data, any kind of companies that they find that they are relevant, and then they can make business, they can offer better services to citizens. And here we're defining the use cases and start implementing them. As I said, with the Smart Destination Network and the business ecosystems, and to bring the right stakeholders in. So if you really think that you could be part of it, welcome. If you have an auntie that owns a hotel or just is doing activity somewhere that think could be a good idea, welcome as well, and that would be it.
Thank you very much, Oriol, and thank you to show the technical details. I mean, he has spoken about EDC connector, fiber connector, Gaia-X trust framework, and that is one of the challenges we need now, is to use the Gaia-X with all the connectors, for example. That is a message for the Gaia-X people. And now we have spoken about tourism, and now we are in Valencia. We need to speak about the smart cities. And I had one of the person who better knows the smart cities, Antonio Jara. He knows everything, and he is the master of digital twins. So Antonio Jara from Libelium.
So here I will present one real experience from one data space oriented to a very specific domain, that's urban heat islands. Cartagena is just 200 kilometers from here. We are part of the data space for smart sustainable cities and communities. That is one of the initiatives in Europe that have defined a blueprint about how to build a data space for smart cities. And now we have different pilots. One is this for urban highlands. We have another one led by Valencia about floodings called Geo for Water, but this is the particular case of BeatTheHeat, or how to avoid urban heat islands. So this project engaged different institutions just to guarantee that we can communicate and exchange data between different cities. One city is, as I mentioned, Cartagena here in Spain. We also have two cities in Italy, Taranto and Naples. And the most important is that we have also key stakeholders supplying very relevant data. One is the company Evertree, one company that is coming from Seville, from the CSIS, that have the largest database about all the trees, families of trees and plants in the world, that give you exactly what is the value in terms of lifetime of a tree in your street, how much shadow and how much resilience is generating for urban heat island. Also, we have Latitudo, that is specialized in Copernicus, in satellite data, in all the aspects related to Earth observation. Libelium, that is as part of the European Union toolbox, has the European building database. We are releasing this after summer, a full database with all the buildings of Europe, with year of construction, what is the number of different characteristics of the trees. And finally, we have Meditech, that is a competence center in Italy that is supporting this development. So the urban heat island is one of the largest and well-recognized challenges as part of the urban development. Is in fact for the climate change agnostics. They believe in urban heat island. They say, oh, the climate change is not so true, always there is change, but urban heat islands are real. I think everything is real, but even urban heat island is a very critical challenge. Put into value critical issues about, for example, electrical poverty. People cannot switch on the air conditioner during the night, or this kind of challenge. Also bring a lot of stress, a lot of mental disease. And the most critical point here is that less than 15% of the data available in one city is really being used. So how to exploit all these IoT devices, environmental sensors, and sort of data to have a strong planning about generation of shadows, how to optimize routing for buses and public transport, how to also establish new areas for trees. And I think it's very important. Just as a curiosity, Cartagena city, when they established the low emission zone, first point was the unique and first low emission zone in Spain based on artificial intelligence. And the conclusion was to generate a new region called the Bosque Romano, the Romanic Garden, that was a huge area narrow next to the city that was also granted with an award of 12 million euros. So the city managed with AI and data to optimize the low emission zone, to avoid strong constraints for the users, to satisfy the improvement of the quality of life, and also establish a new entertainment area that also was so well motivated thanks to data that was easily awarded by the Fundación Biodiversidad with one of the largest projects. So the goal is to understand in this European data space for urban heat island mitigation. Of course, this is not an isolated data space. This will be interfaced with the simple node for smart cities, with the Geo for water for the flooding, with the Green Deal data space and the other ones. We want to put into value the relevant data sets about weather, air quality, vegetation, trees, satellite data, also destination Earth. Don't keep this in your mind. Destination Earth, the largest data space for all the data related to environment, also coming. That is one of the partners in Geo for Water. And also create this key service, because for me, at the end of the day, a data space is like a very specific service and data that could complement your cities. Like, for example, the city of Valencia is, I always use as an example, is in 5 data spaces. It's not in a single one. Why Valencia is in 5 data spaces? Because we have one for smart cities in Europe, that is simple. One for smart cities in Spain, that is called EDIC. One for flooding, called Geo for Water. 4 for smart destination, called PIA or PID. And also now is also developing the sandbox for artificial intelligence called Cisco. So have 5 data spaces, a single catalog of data and service, but all of them are interfacing like different application or solution that you can interface in order to solve and address. In the particular case of urban heat island, BeatTheHeat will offer you the specific service, the specific data sets that are world coverage or European coverage, like for example, these buildings database from the local digital Turnbull, or this Evertree database of all the trees life cycle that could help you in this particular needs. So we will leverage all the existing data about weather forecast, climate alert, Earth observation from satellite, in situ or localized, what we used to call hyperlocal Internet of Things devices. And also we will integrate, as I mentioned, the European building database, the catalog of urban trees for the Spanish company Evertree, and other relevant data like traffic, etc. This is an example of how we are leveraging satellite data, and of course, on top of that, we can leverage a specific service like Air Quality Index 2.0, because it's not only the index, it's also about how this air quality will be influenced by different aspects, events. The origin of pollution, very critical and very relevant service to identify exactly how much pollution is coming from mobility, from urban background, from nature sources. So it's very important to understand where is really the pollution coming from. And finally, other much more popular service, like for example, pollen index. Air quality, sometimes now in spring, is a very good season to understand all the consequences of having this kind of pollen index. And of course, bringing all these services like shadow maps, thermal comfort map, urban health map, pollution maps, health impact assessment for this energy poverty, or other health-related aspects like mental health. And finally, how to help with all this for pedestrian zones, cyclist routes, or even improvement the mobility of the zone. So what we offer and what we work is this cycle, starting from collecting data locally to integrating data from different sources, make this model based on European sovereign model like Chimera, that is a full European model, and WRF, another European model. Just as a curiosity, the models for pollution propagation and weather forecasting is driven by Europe in cooperation with USA. So this is a critical area where Europe has a leadership and sovereignty. And of course, bringing this extra service, like for example, the creation of zoning, analysis, etc. Benefits is the climate change adoptions, the new mobility plans as we're doing in Cartagena, the energy efficiency, the biodiversity restoration, and finally, key aspect and key discussion is the governance. A single data space with common service, with common data sets that could be relevant for all Europe, guarantee that we can create also service that can be replicable and extensible, and finally, all the aspect about sustainability, security, and for that it is for us very important to use this Gaia-X solution, this governance, these anchor points that give us the trust, these clearing houses that to guarantee that the governance, at least, we focus on business and we rely on this organization in all the aspects. And this is an 18-month project is totally based and has a lot of advantage because all the cities engaged have already a firewall-based platform, and that gives us a very strong benefit to start collecting and interconnecting data in the different phases. This is how it looks like, for example, how we can analyze different streets to see the different low emission zone recommendation or the comfort of every street, and also compare between the current and the different areas how is going to be the prediction. And thank you so much. And just I wanted to share a real case. Thank you.
Thank you, Antonio. Really interesting. So I know that the climate change is going to increase the temperature. You know, if you are from France, Paris is working in a thing is called Sevillanizar Paris. So make Paris as Sevilla. It means with shadowing and so. Maybe now we need to say Cartagenizar Paris. So we need to make Paris as Cartagena. We need to make all the shadows that we have. Next speaker, I think next speaker is Ernesto Faubel, but Antonio has already made a lot of spoiler because he has already spoken about Valencia, because we have here Valencia Council. Thank you, Ernesto.
Thank you for inviting me to be here and to explain smart city projects in Valencia, especially those that are focused on data spaces. I don't know if I have to be grateful to you for paving the path for my presentation or blaming on you for spoiling part of it, but let's start with this. I would like to start giving a bit of context for our smart city project in Valencia, in which, well, initially, I would like to put our focus on the commitment that we have with the standards. We have participated actively in the definition of some standards that nowadays are ongoing and are used by a lot of entities and institutions. But also to highlight the fact that we are used to work in networks, the collaboration. So for us, the collaboration in networks, in different initiatives, is a key aspect for, let me say, our success. So at Spanish level, we are coordinating with one of the groups in RECI, that is the Spanish network of smart cities. But at the international level, we are also chairing different groups at whether European in OASC or at let me say, worldwide level with some agencies of United Nations, in which we are, for example, co-leading the working group on urban platforms, on EU4SCC, or on emerging technologies for the initiative for Cityverse. So in Smart City Office, we have started to collaborate with the rest of the organization, trying to remove the silos. So for this, we have tried to integrate as many services, as much information as we have been able to from different departments, so as to integrate all in our platform and then to explode the data that we have there. And we have used one thing that I think that this is a good practice that we have shared, for example, in RECI, for the smart clauses, that are clauses that are included in the tenders for example, for waste collection tender. We include some clauses that so make it mandatory for the provider of the services to deploy sensors, IoT devices, and to provide or to inject the data in our urban platform according to our requirements. So in our project, I would like to highlight some of the pillars, the enablers, let me say, that are, for example, the urban platform. We could say the key, the core of the system, the kernel of the system. But GIS, our GIS is also a very important asset and an element. And also, I would like to highlight the city app, the App Valencia, that is one of the main components in our project. So here you can see our ecosystem, IT ecosystem. It's not only for smart city, because we have included here in this slide also the internal IT systems. So you can see on the bottom of the slide the input sources, let me say, and then in the middle of the slide you have the main components of our IT ecosystem. So the administrative platform in which we deal with the files, with the bills, with everything that we deal with in the internal system. So, for example, the certification, the registry, the payments, so aspects like this. And on the right side, you have services that are included in our Smart City platform. And for this, we have these four elements that are, in a way, interconnected, but are the core of our system. So the internal platform, the urban data platform for Smart City, the city databases, that is for territory, for the organization, and for citizens, and the GIS. And on the top of the slide, you have the different consumers, different ways of providing services to the citizens. So it's like a presentation layer or services layer. And here is the architecture of our platform in which, as you can see, there are a lot of components fiber-based. So our platform was the first in Spain, and it was one of apart from the first urban platform, was one of the first being based in fiber at European level, and it has become a reference not only at national level but also at international. For example, a proof of that is that we are leading the urban platform group at United Nations level. So this is one of the pillars of for the success of our smart city projects. And to finish with, I would like to highlight some projects that are ongoing in our city. Some of them have been mentioned by Antonio before. But, for example, we are involved, we are leading this South Supernode of Europe in Sitcom AI project, that is the test and experimentation facility for artificial intelligence applied to smart cities. And so we are working hard in the deployment of a smart city in a Dataspace connector. But we are also involved in some other Dataspaces project. At the Spanish level, the PID that Oriol has presented before. So we are one of the cities that are going to participate in this project, in this amazing and ambitious, very ambitious project. At national level, we have been granted also with EDIC project, that is the data spaces for smart cities. 12 local entities, 10 municipalities, and 2 provincial governments are part of this project based specifically in data spaces. And we are also, as you have mentioned before, involved in GEO for water. That is one of the DS4SCC call. I think that we will find some synergies with this project in Cartagena, that is going to be deployed in Cartagena. And I would like to mention the role of Valencia and, generally speaking, the EDIC on local digital twins towards the cityverse. As you may know, Valencia is the seat, or has the seat of this EDIC, and I'm honored to be the chair of this consortium. Up to now, we are 14 member states, and we're going to deploy a project for launching this EDIC, and it will include the deployment of a node of Simple here in Valencia. And that's all from my side. Thank you for your attention. And, we're here. If you need anything, you can contact me in this email address. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ernesto, even with the spoiler of Antonio. And now we have seen tourism, we have seen smart cities, and mobility is very important for both, for mobility, for tourism, and for smart cities. And now I invite Jim Ahtes from I2CAT, one of the main persons of the mobility data spaces here in Spain. Thank you, Jim.
Great, many thanks. Good afternoon to you. I'm Jim Ahtes from the I2CAP Foundation. Just a quick note, the context of the presentation isn't on one specific project in particular, but to try to connect the dots between local, national, and EU mobility data spaces, as well as show the intersection between the top-down EU framework of the EMDS and bottom-up development of use cases in mobility. And just a quick asterisk, some of the slides are filled with content, but you'll have access to all these slides afterwards. Some of them I included just to highlight a few different messages, but I'll include some references in the slide as well. Okay, just a few words about who we are. We're a research and innovation center in Barcelona. We have our core roots in network technologies, but have branched out to other digital technologies with a strong presence in data spaces. We help advance the state-of-the-art of data space technology and standards, and also integrate it with different technology, complementary technology, such as AI, IoT, digital twins, privacy-enhancing technology, and most relevant for this presentation, help lower the barriers for businesses and companies to develop their use cases with infrastructure and services and expertise in that aspect in strategic verticals like mobility. So jumping straight into mobility. On the EU level, there's some many ambitious objectives and goals towards many different milestones towards 2050, including integrated ticketing systems, zero-emission vehicles, and road safety. And all of these have something in common, that they all require access and exchange of data at scale, where, as you can, I mean, especially for this type of audience, you can see the connection with the core value proposition of data spaces here. Well, the EU does as well. And they've developed a vision for a European mobility data space. Its objective is to facilitate the access, the pooling, and the exchange of data at scale between different transportation and mobility infrastructures. We're not talking about a single, solitary, all-in-one mobility and transportation data repository, but really a technical and governance framework to interconnect and federate different transportation infrastructures. You can imagine this is quite ambitious, because when I talk about mobility, I immediately think of the type of actors we work with on a day-to-day basis, like public transportation operators, traffic operators, but some of you may be thinking of EV infrastructures, logistics, even aviation. We're talking about a multitude of different value chains, each one with their own data models, ecosystems, and legacy systems. And so the bottom up here is to develop use cases across these different sectors, these different subsectors of mobility. In Spain, through the program that Ruth presented earlier, there's been a critical mass of new mobility use cases funded, and these are ongoing, a good representation of these different subsectors. This is just a sample, for example, of those presented in the Gaia-X Spain summit in December, but there are many more on the way. But now we get into challenges when we try to mix the bottom-up development of use cases and also the top-down EU framework. And so how can we develop and accelerate those use cases, but ensure that there's a long-term vision of interoperability? It's challenging. First, as we know, especially in a forum like this, the standards are still being defined and refined. So interoperability is quite a bit of a moving target. And it's not just technical. Governance, like in mobility, such as other sectors as well, there's multiple layers to regulation as well that you have to adapt your governance model to as well. But I'd like to talk about 3 different complementary ways which we can find a solution to this challenge. The first related to the same national program, a network of demonstration centers, not just accelerating the development of data spaces, use cases, but also ensuring that they focus on the EU standards and development for long-term interoperability. That's an initiative happening in Spain, and I think it's a replicable model for other countries as well. Also, the iterative operational models that extend the local governance models of specific use case value chains with the evolving EMDS framework itself. And also regional forums like Gaia-X Spain to help beyond technical infrastructure, to help with the value proposition towards every stage of use case implementation, from design to demonstration to scaling. And so when we talk about that full life cycle, when we talk about design, helping in design is the technical expertise to help with EU standards and the protocols and frameworks, the methodology to help transform data sources into data products and onboarding of diverse infrastructures. Also to help the implementation by provide access to local infrastructures and test beds. And then finally, I put only demonstration, but it should be demonstration and scaling, getting the MVP step where you help connect them to other data providers and data or service providers across Europe that can complement that mobility use case and extend. And so one of these demonstration centers is in Catalunya, something that I2CAT has developed with the regional government, also part of that national program. It's a regional incubator for data space development, experimentation, and piloting, and it provides testbed infrastructure, tools and services, technical and governance expertise, and co-financing for use cases. And the ideal is to greatly accelerate the development of use cases and provide that type of support throughout the full life cycle. And so when we say a testbed, sorry, I forgot to do an extra click. I'll talk about this mobility use case in just a little bit, but it's an example of the type of use cases that we support from the demonstration center. But to keep an eye on the infrastructure, when we talk about a testbed infrastructure that can help facilitate implementation, we're talking about providing the connectors, catalog, identity authority service, a monitoring engine, a data space governance portal for participants, and also a sandbox for initial proof of concepts before local deployment of that infrastructure for the specific use cases. And this is linked to EU standards. It's using the data space protocol and for the connectors through an Eclipse implementation, and for the identity authority service, we're looking to extend to the Gaia-X trust framework between 2025 and 2026. And so to have a bit of focus on the specific type of use cases and what we can imagine how to scale those. So this is one from developed in Terrassa, for example, a city in Spain, where we connect the data sources from the mobility sensor ring of the Terrassa City Council to their platform operator for traffic operation, with a third-party marketplace of services, such as providing traffic simulations and digital twins. The ideal here is to provide them the infrastructure, the services, and the trusted environment where the City Council can define the usage policies and have the traceability to provide that non-open data, that sensitive data, to an extending marketplace of third-party services. Another quick example is a larger use case developed in the framework of DeployMDS, the sister project DeployTour that was presented earlier, this one in mobility, collaboration between 9 European regions. And this use case comes from Barcelona, where it's a data space provided by the Public Transit Authority, in this case ATM, to fleet operators of bus public transport, allowing them to extend or to share sensitive operational data with third-party services to help them in better planning and optimization of routes for on-demand mobility. And this is just a taste of other things to come, but the ideal is that to develop this in line with those standards from that infrastructure and services provided by the demonstration center. And so just to leave you with a few of these takeaways, we realize that it is quite challenging, especially with the moving target of interoperability, but we think between these 3 pillars, we can progress together and have these scalable use cases in mobility, between local demonstration centers that use EU standards, iterative governance models that connect to those evolving EU frameworks for the EMDS, and regional forums like Gaia-X Spain that can help the different stages of design, implementation, and demonstration and scaling through the life cycle of a use case. Many thanks for your time.
Thank you, Jim. If you want to know anything in Spain about mobility, you can ask Jim without any question. And now we have, of course, the Gaia-X data space for mobility, the Gaia-X for future mobility with Steffen then Turnbull. Here, Steffen. Thank you, Steffen, for coming. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Hello, everyone. Yeah, thank you for joining the session. Just as a quick note, like my slides will be a little bit more of a higher level, but I will hope that this will also help me save a little bit of time, maybe. I was just invited last week, actually, by Jim to join the Gaia-X Hub Spain mobility session, where I presented a lot of what I will present today a little bit more in detail. So feel free to afterwards approach me or send me an email to also get a little bit of the more detailed slides. Yeah, but Gaia-X for Future Mobility, as what doesn't say here, but in Germany it's always called Project Family, is actually a project of family. So 6 single funded projects that try to incorporate and tackle the challenges that the mobility system in general had. On the one side, we want to kind of think about how can we govern the data in such a mobility system, how can we use a lot of the new, let's say, innovations, AI, and so on, within such a mobility system. On the other side, how can we ensure that also the travel experience, the personal mobility experience of users is enhanced. And as you can see, the system is quite complex. So in Germany, we also have the mobility Dataspace. We had a lot of partners within the projects. I have a slide later that are also involved in other lighthouse projects such as Gaia-X. So how can we really incorporate all these different requirements and tackle the different challenges that we saw in terms of doing the groundwork in order to implement the use cases, to also demonstrate the value that Gaia-X brings in order to implement some of these mobility solutions. As you can see on this slide, the participants were quite heterogeneous. We had a lot, over I think 80 partners in 6 projects. So you can see a lot of them coming from industry, especially startups and SMEs as well, but then also a lot of research, academic institutions who participated. We had public sector participants. I think from the previous few presentations you saw that smart cities is closely related to mobility. So you also will see on the bottom some of the cities who participated in some of the projects. All of them, of course, have different incentives, have different, at the end, also outcomes. I think one of the major contributions, and when we think about what we did in the past 3 years, is also that we can see that some of the different players have actually also begun to come up with business cases in terms of selling some of the technology or their services or applications that came directly out of some of the topics. Nonetheless, we were 6 research projects in the field of mobility. So we also try to, by using 20 plus use cases, demonstrate along the entire traffic system how to really use and make use of some of the components and ideas behind Gaia-X, but also similar Dataspace initiatives. How can we realize a lot of this? You will see that it's very different from basic applications on how to validate and use data in AI algorithms, but also transport, fleet management in terms of vehicles, personal transportation, but also logistical transportation, safe and secure cooperation of automated vehicles. So how can we increase or provide better rescue services to certain mobility situations where we need this data maybe from different sources. So it's a quite big range of different use cases. What we realized is how can we kind of keep everything together? How can we create the maximum out of the synergies between all of these different stakeholders, between all of the different projects? So we tried, after starting all of the projects, to see where the common layers, the common developments, common topics between all of the different projects. We had a survey. Here's just one of the survey results where you can see where all the different projects contributed towards and how can we leverage on this, how can we kind of come up with common smaller working groups who then at the end really contribute also to this. What you can see here is some of the milestones we achieved. As you can see, I think one of the more famous example is the road damage detection use case, which is also one of the highlighted use cases in the Gaia-X Academy. So I think if anyone wants to learn more about it, feel free to also check that out. But also on the right side, you can see, for example, the ODD compliant routing service out of one of the projects, which actually I think while I'm talking right now is prepared for a final demonstration tomorrow. We came up with a kind of common architecture and building blocks, but also, for example, digital twins in the marketplace in terms of after sales for the actual vehicles. So I think in general, it was quite the journey. And as I said, we are a little bit already at the end of this journey, but I see that a lot of the stuff we did, also a lot of the services are now provided, are now reused, and some of the projects partnered, which is, I think, in my opinion, the most valuable kind of output is that we have them providing some of these services, actually reusing it or actively using it out of a research project. So that's quite cool. And as I said, I think if you want any more details on this, feel free to reach out. Here's my email, and you can get also more detailed slides. Thank you so much for your attention.